Today I have Will Burrett with me. He's actually a very good friend of mine, but beyond that, he's also probably one of the leaders that I respect the most. So I wanted to share his beautiful wisdom that I have had the fortune of for many years with everyone else. So morning, Will.
Kia ora koutou, ko rangi tautau te maunga, ko haureki te moana, no tāmaki makaurua hau, ko Whakasin clan te iwi, ko te kairahia hau o Pāmu, ko Will Burrett toko ingoa. Kia ora.
Kia ora, tēnā koe moto pepeha.
Thanks, mate. And yeah, you keep telling me to put myself out there and make myself a little bit vulnerable. So great to join you today. Awesome.
Give us a bit of background on your career or life journey.
Jeffer originally, proud Jeffer. And probably more proud the fact that I've got a great network of friends and family up in Auckland, but probably the real joy for me was the fact that I love and knew very early that I loved the agricultural sector. Mum and Dad used to throw me on the intercity bus and at Sky City every school holidays, and used to get out in Tiro, and close family friend used to throw me the keys of the old single cab ute and drive to turkeys and rabbits and spray a bit of gorse and do some work, sling some cups. So I really knew from a young age that I love the agricultural sector and that's where I wanted to be. So I was probably really fortunate in that sense. Went off to Lincoln, BCom Ag, met some great humans there that continue to ground me today, which is good. And then from there, ASB Rural, did some rural banking, rural finance. Really loved that, customer service, understanding what the good operators do and how they operate. And then from there, went up to Fonterra in Auckland, learned how to put a few more zeros on everything, but learned about cooperative principles and scale, which was really interesting. And then met my now wife, Rosa, that I had a big itch to scratch to go farming. So, cut the salary in three, went down to Te Awamutu, 19-2 roster, milking 700 cows for really good operators. So we had a really, really fortunate to have a good foundation in dairy. And then went off to corporate farming or corporate dairy down in Canterbury with Rangatata Dairies, and learned a hell of a lot there. And then, grew, I guess, and the beauty of the dairy sector was, in 4 years' time, we went from farm assistants through to our own contract milking business of 1,400 cows in Mayfield. So, it was really, really exciting. Loved it. Sort of did the 10,000 hours fairly quickly in that space, but learned a hell of a lot. And then a bit of ag tech with Map of Ag, which was really exciting and sort of taking into account, what Forbes Elworthy's doing over in the UK, but also his vision of that simplified data space is really exciting, but also the connectivity they had in the UK with Sainsbury's and Arla and that around how to validate supply chains and animal welfare and that, which was really cool. Then lucky enough to get the opportunity with Ngāi Tahu farming. So sort of knew that I loved that operational side and that management side. So went there and had 3 really good years there, and then taken on this new role in Pāmu. So no, it's been a hell of a journey, but exemplifies the opportunity that the primary sector can provide.
You had an amazing time at Ngāi Tahu. What did you learn through that?
If you reflect on how they even just start meetings, how Māori start meetings in terms of your pepeha, where your maunga, your mountain, your awa, your river, or your ocean, and the connection you have to either an iwi or a clan. For me, it was, the Whakasin clan, and I did my pepeha at an event one day, and, called Whakasin clan to iwi, and this old boy walked up at the end of it and said, "Hey, I'm a Whakasin as well." And it was just that immediate connection that, we were both from Scotland, potentially from the same village, our ancestors drunk from the same water, hunted the same land. Like, that connection is just immense, right? That's way deeper than any material thing, your car, your house, where you live, your friends, whatever.
Where you went to
It's
school.
just so, where you went where you went to school, it's just so rich, and I just love that. So to start every hui, or an introduction like that was really special. It was more about where you're from and the connections that you could build before you went into the the commercials around things. That was just one little thing that I really took away. But the tangas, manaakitanga, giving, Kiwis are bloody good at giving, and breaking bread and sitting down together and sharing. There's no greater feeling than sharing some of your own kai that you've produced on your own farm with a visitor. That's pretty special. Kaitiakitanga, looking after land, looking after family. I really connected with that. And I think just as a society at the moment, we are a mishmash of all sorts of different cultures, right? And that's awesome. That's fantastic. Embrace that. But the one common thing that we do have is this core Māori underlying view on things that I think is pretty unique to Aotearoa and pretty unique for us that we can really embrace and leverage it. I really enjoyed my time at Ngāi Tahu. I grew immensely there. So it was awesome.
You live it every day. I can tell it'll be with you forever, won't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you never forget that sort of experience. And, probably one of the most purposeful companies I'll work for, knowing that you're doing what you're doing today is actually trying to help and underlying people grow. So, it was pretty special.
Did you plan this? Like, did you just know this was going to happen?
I never would have thought I'd be where I am today doing what I'm doing, other than the fact that I'm doing what I'm really passionate about. And that's been based in the primary sector with, I think, Dad passing probably made me reflect a little bit around the trajectory and where I was going. And at the time, it was probably like, well, can I be more, or can I offer more to the sector? And is there an opportunity to give back a little bit as well on the way through? So that's probably where I reset myself and sort of thought, hey, let's take these learnings and support the people that don't necessarily want to operate post farm gate, but help them a little bit more to share this awesome sector that we're involved in, really. So, yeah.
I think the awesome thing, though, is you share this big knowledge, because I think when you've been through banking, you've been on the ground, literally, and then you've been in the operational management leadership space and now in the executive space. I think those are all different spaces, right? They all have their own, I don't know, challenges and opportunities, but each one of them connects back with what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, 100%. I think banking was really fascinating. Saw both sides of GFC.
Yep.
And that was fascinating, just human behaviours, banks, evolution and thinking around lending and farmers owning their own budgets and that sort of thing. That was just a fascinating period to go through, if I'm honest, and probably reset a few things. And then coming back to more operations side, what are the key things that actually drive performance? And that's the physical things, the behaviours day to day, and controlling what we can control, right? Especially in farming, where you've got this biological system that's bloody challenging at times. Just the structures and the frameworks that you can put into your daily behaviours that limit risk or also provide performance. So, I guess I've taken those learnings and tried to espouse them a little bit in my leadership as I've evolved on the way through.
Would you define yourself as super adaptable, or did you become adaptable because you did lots of different roles?
Great question. I love structure. Structure gives you freedom. But I think you have to be adaptable and always take on information at the time and reflect on what you need to respond to within that. So, yeah, I think I'm probably adaptable, but underlying there's probably some core structure that gives you the ability to have the freedom to be adaptable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's kind of when you have the guardrails, right? You know exactly where you can bounce around within them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And you kind of need that too, right? Like the criteria or residuals or rotations or whatever it might be at a real grassroots level around what we need to be focused on. But actually that rolls right up into the performance at a higher level around certainty of cash flow and all that sort of thing. So,
yeah, and when you can trust that someone on the ground knows that those are the two perspectives that are going to be the thing that gets the milk in the vat or gets the meat growth or whatever, or is going to be right for the environment or whatever those parameters are, you can then trust that you're going to get the results that you need for the business.
Yeah, totally. It is executional excellence, but it's trusting in the behaviours that you've got in the team to be able to drive that. So, yeah.
How do you build that? Because I think that's probably one thing that I see even in small farms where farm managers or farm owners sometimes don't know how to let go or don't know how to trust. Is that something you developed, or is that just the person that you are?
I think you've got to provide the clarity so they know what good looks like. So clearing the clutter is a big thing. We've gone through a bit of an evolution in what that looks like we went through it in Ngāi Tahu farming, and we're going through it in Pāmu around actually what are the core things in our roles day to day that we need to execute to succeed. So it's been really clear on those, and we've got 4 pretty clear within Pāmu moving forward around animals, people, wastage, and internal optimization. So the engine room, the internal economy actually working really efficiently. So that's really exciting, and just being really clear on those and what everyone's roles are within the business to achieve that. So that's probably how I operate. It's probably bringing it back to what this means for me in terms of the bigger picture. So
Yeah.
no, it's been a learned thing from being hands-on as a farm assistant right through to the role I'm in now. It's actually what the things are that we're doing day to day that paddles the waka in the same direction at the same time. So yeah.
I almost feel like everyone should do 2 years in banking. Like, I think there's something around, some countries have mandatory military training. I think everyone should have to do 2 years in banking, because there is something around that structure, risk. I don't know how to describe it, but the learning that you get is just epic, and it's osmosis. It's not even that someone sits you down and talks to you about it. It literally is this incredible environment of structure and learning, and you see what good structure looks like, and you see what no structure, how bad no structure can be. It's just, I don't know, everyone should have mandatory 2 years at a bank.
Yeah. And it could be broader than that. It could be grad programs, because there's a lot of good grad programs out there, right? A lot of entities now. But I think the beautiful thing about the banking scene is you get to know those financial structures that enable someone to gear and lend and grow. And they do give you some really good core principles around balance sheet, cash flow, and probably the people factor that enables the confidence to lend. So yeah, simple principles, but when you take those and extrapolate them to bigger organizations, really important, right?
Well, they work anywhere. That's a great thing.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
What's your leadership philosophies?
Accountability is a big one for me, but that only comes from clarity. So being really clear on how we approach a common goal, and then enabling and growing people to be able to achieve. I think you'll remember this, JJ, but Cohen Brown. There was the success triangle within Cohen Brown: clear, capable, and motivated. And that's probably an approach that I take to a lot of my leadership. Is okay, are the team clear? Are they capable? You can hire that in, or you can grow and develop that. And have they got the right motivation? Do they know why they get out of bed every day to do the job that they're doing, both for themselves, but also for the business? So, and that equals success, right? So I think that's probably how I approach it at a really simple level. And if there's something that hasn't worked or hasn't quite landed, then I sort of test myself back to those 3 around, okay, well, what was it within the success triangle that didn't work? And then what can I do better tomorrow? So that's probably how I approach that. Yeah.
Good leadership, though. If something goes wrong, you look in the mirror. If something goes right, you look out the window. And I think there's a lot of window gazing the other way around now. I think a lot of people, something goes wrong and everyone's looking out the window, see who they can blame.
I think the one constant through all of the changes that I've had in my career has been rugby refereeing. So, and I probably put a lot of my professional development down to that. Was in that high performance scene in the NZRU was you're focused on 5 things, basically: technical, tactical, and management. So technically, do you know the law? Tactically, what's the material effect of that action relative to that law? And then management around how your game management. And then the other 2 are physical and mental. So physically, are you fit enough to be able to make the right decision in the 81st minute when it's a 14-all, game, and you're hard on attackers dead, one of the team's goal lines. And then mental was just how you approached it and how you encapsulated the whole thing. And I think, to your point, a big part of rugby reffing was your game plans and your game reviews every week, and you'd get critically assessed by a coach on that. And I think that was really good learning for me, was being able to actually flip the mirror out and both in a game, being able to reflect on shit. That was a rubbish call. Actually, I need to own that, or okay, what am I going to do differently next time? So I've taken a lot out of that professional exposure that I had in that environment to test under pressure, but also self-reflect and change on the move. So probably comes back to that agility.
Well, I think it's humility. I think that's probably one of the things that I've always seen in you. No matter how big a job you get, no matter how talented you are, you don't see it. You don't wield that. You still see the world as needing to improve. You see that continuous improvement is for all of us.
That's the beautiful thing about leadership, right? It's like anything, but leadership especially, you're always growing. There's always a different scenario you're learning from. And that's bloody exciting, eh? That's what gets you out of bed every day, is that there's always a common challenge. Be it capital, be it cash flow, be it strategy, be it culture. But actually, that's such a beautiful thing, is to be able to keep growing in that space. You've never arrived.
So what are your biggest challenges that you've had to overcome through your career?
The ability to stay true to the core. You could always very easily just go along and accept where you're at. And there's been a couple of situations that I've said, actually, no, I'm going to change or be changed effectively. Banking was one where there was different leadership in the bank, and I probably wasn't aligned with that. And so instead of being the antagonist, just change and get ahead of it and own your own space. So I think I've always sort of felt it has been my responsiveness to my environment, which is really critical. So, both good and bad. And if you're not happy, then share it in the right way, and make sure that you're airing an opportunity rather than a challenge or a problem, and coming up with a solution on how you might approach it. So I always see the challenges that I've had as been opportunities, to be fair, to grow. I've never really taken them as tough situations. Lincoln was probably a little bit tough, where I didn't come from a farming background. Yeah. A lot of the lads were, it was ingrained within them every single day. They were living and breathing soils, plants, animal science, farm management, decision system design. They were just immersed in it. Whereas I was probably immersed in a concrete jungle in Auckland, which was slightly different. So that really put me out of my comfort zone, but I kind of knew that I loved it. I loved that space, and I just had to learn. So I was learning so much through Lincoln. It wasn't funny. I was probably learning a few other things as well. Through that time, you grow. I think when you're in a challenging environment, you grow the most. So I loved it. It was awesome. And then you come out on the other side, and there's a few lecturers that probably didn't think I was ever going to make it. I remember I had a head injury, and I went to try and get a dispensation on a paper once, and the lecturer basically looked at me and said, "Oh, you'll be a nothing if you go down this path." And I'll never forget it. So it's almost trying to get back at that lecturer a little bit.
Oh, look, I tell you what, though, I reckon those are the times that you want the real challenge. If you float through something like uni and it seems easy, it's a bit of a rude awakening when you come out of it.
Yeah, 100%. And each new role I've gone into, there's been such immense growth and learning, and I love that. I embrace that. Like that's what gets me out of bed, is that there's a challenge. You've obviously got to achieve certain targets and that you've always got to nail, but actually the growth to get there is the exciting part. I think one thing on reflection would be just enjoy the moments where things do go right. I think we're such what's Edmund Hillary's saying, take the next bugger off or something. Aotearoa, our culture is just about getting to the next hurdle and overcoming it and keeping going again and going again. And that's amazing resilience and fortitude to succeed. But it's also, you've got to celebrate the success on the way through and recognise the moment. So I think that's something that I don't do well still, and I need to do better at. But
yeah, look where you've come from, not always where you've got to get to.
Dare I say it is the journey, right?
Yes, I know, and it's all these cliches, but they're true. That's the weird thing is they're actually, when you sit back and you go, I've come this far, or even sometimes we have to reassess what success looks like in that time. But you've always been, like, my big gripe in New Zealand's always been we don't execute well, but I see you execute really well in strategy. Like, you can set it and you can execute it. How do you lead through change? I don't think there's ever been a job where you haven't taken somewhere from A to B.
Yeah, I think whether or not I've experienced change or I've led it is you never nail it. And I certainly know I've got to keep growing in that space and getting better. But I think comms is just so critical, and having a vision of what good looks like, and simplifying the message back to how people can actually connect with where you want the business to go or the organization to go. And the change that I've experienced where I was on the receiving end of it was probably it was always about comms, and then what does that mean for me? And then on the other hand, where I was leading, it was always about that, but it probably, you can always do better in that space, and no change is ever easy, but giving people something to have a vision towards is really critical. So yeah, that's part of the leadership challenge. You got to really demonstrate that you got an empathy with what the people are either doing in their day-to-day roles, or they're going through to get to what that desired outcome is. So getting shoulder to shoulder with that's really important. And I think that's been one of the challenges of this current role, is you can't exactly get out there and espouse work culture and work ethic across a whole number of properties. You've actually got to lead it through language and structure, and that's probably the evolution that my leadership journey's been going in, which is really cool.
So you're leading leaders, and so it's almost that whole, how do you leave them to lead, but then how do you make sure everybody knows that you're there if needed too? And it's that balance, isn't it?
Yeah. And you got their back right. That's really important. But
yeah,
you're surrounding yourself with the right people. You get the strategy right. You get the structure right. You surround yourself with the right people. Often cleverer than you is always helpful. And then and then you unleash them, really. So that's probably the big thing. Yeah.
Now, who's been your big mentors or people that in your life that you feel have built you?
There's been a few, and I'm really fortunate that there has been a few, right? Mum and dad, obviously, initially phenomenally fortunate of the foundation they gave me, and the growth that dad naturally gave not only to me but so many people, was awesome. Just the structure, the confidence, the always ticking something off and going to the next thing in a positive way, and just giving me the fundamental belief that you can do anything you put your mind to, but you only get out what you put in.
Yeah.
So that was really important, and I still carry
Your
that
dad is
today.
a legend, though. I want a big shout out to your dad, because he's just like huge. I used to love calling him huge. I don't know if he liked it, actually. He probably hated it, but Hugh Burrett. But he just, oh man, that man is just, you know what? The other day I was thinking about him and I could just see his smile in his pinstripe suit.
He loved his pinstripes. Yeah, he loved his pinstripes.
But he was a hard worker. It was a thing. Hard worker, always made everyone feel special. If you walked into a room, he would make you feel like you're the only person there, and good with advice. Like, great, really honest.
Yeah, pretty special way with connecting with people, and keeping positive and always looking forward, never looking back. That was pretty cool. It's actually 7 years this weekend, JJ, that he passed. So that's just evaporated, eh? But
I can still hear him and see him.
Yeah, certainly the odd moment over the last sort of few years, that I've wondered what the hell he's done, and I needed to really have a coffee with him or a beer with him. We'll probably just go fishing with him, to be fair. That was probably a happy place. So yeah. But no, look, really fortunate there. And then I think, just the coaching journey, the reffing journey, sorry, and always had coaches with me through reffing. So reffed in 3 regions. Each region, I was really fortunate to have a ref that sort of lifted me, grounded me, held me to account, and kept pushing me. So really fortunate there with those coaches. Had a farming mentor, Bill Mackey, that's always kept me grounded as well, which has been awesome, and just focused me on what mum and dad farmer would sort of be thinking about issues or opportunities. So always valued Bill's view. And then you've got a business coach now, so that's really important, and sort of has been consistent through Ngāi Tahu and now Pāmu. So is starting to get to understand me, Chris Johnson, and he's really challenging me to keep evolving my leadership and harnessing my strengths, but also challenging me on different areas, which has been great. So yeah, to be honest, JJ, I've had so many. John Wilson, he gave me the crack to go down to Canterbury, and to be fair, I was probably a bit of a pest. I was farm assistant just down the road from his home farm in Te Awamutu, and gave him a call and a few texts to try and get a catch up. and then gave the opportunity to go down and join the rangatata whānau, which is really awesome. And it's those moments where people give you the opportunities and you've just got to take them, make the most of them, grow from them, and don't be afraid at putting yourself out there. I think that's probably been, on reflection, one of the things that has probably held me in good stead.
I think it's remembering too that, and you've just described through different parts of your journey, you've had different mentors. And I think sometimes people think get one at 20 or whenever, and then you just keep them. But the reality of some you do, and some you grow out of, or they grow out of you, or you go to a different skill. You're in a different role now. So it would be a different, you need a coach, you need that business coach. And I've done that too. Whenever I get a role I haven't done before, I always get someone that's actually been around that can actually support me through that. Coaches or whoever, you can actually keep evolving.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I think sometimes you forget and then mentors, coaches, they've got an uncanny way of actually reminding you in a genuine way, or actually just triggering things that bring a situation that you've been experienced or you've learned from back to reality. And I think that's really important. So no, put yourself out there, get a good set of people around you in the different ages and stages that you evolve through your career. And I think it's bloody important to have that.
Be a pest, right? Like John Wilson at the time, you were a random dude down the road. He would have been the chair of Fonterra. You got to be a pest. Just let them say no. Don't draft yourself out.
That's a great quote. Don't draft yourself out. Just back yourself. Believe in it. And I think one other thing was probably investing in yourself. So on the way through, when I left ASB, actually, I did the week-long Institute of Directors course. I was like 26 or something, 27. Yep. There's a few people going, "What the hell are you doing? You've barely done, a couple of years work out of uni." But actually, from a foundational skills and knowledge, that was really, really good to lift my head up a little bit out of the operational stuff and sort of think strategically, understand what risk is. And then on the way through, did an ice house course, went back and did ag ITO just to reset when I was farm assistant on level 3 pastures and feeding, which was bloody fantastic. Loved it. And then, Fonterra Governance Development Program, bits and pieces. But I think you've really got to invest in yourself and put yourself in that position where you can grow through some structured learning in that. But the 70-20-10 rule, you've got to do the mahi. And I think that's where I realised I needed to go farming to actually understand the real core of it all, and loved that shit. But, still to this day, the most gratifying or satisfying feeling is either seeing the sweat lines in spring on the vat as you're starting to crank up production, or actually just letting a mob of animals into a fresh break. Like, there can be no better feeling than hearing that and seeing that and feeling it in the middle of it all, and sun coming up on your face or going down in the evening. It's such a rewarding, beautiful part of our pastoral sector is feeding people. So special.
Oh yeah, listening to cows eat grass, that's my favourite. It's just when you put them in a new paddock and they're just there. It's like they're happy. I don't know. I'm sure there's no psychology around this. It sounds like they're happy chewing.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Hit a good residual and next round quality is going to be there. It's awesome. Yeah.
I think, though, with that investing in yourself, it is important, because I know when I had leadership roles, it did used to frustrate me that people would always expect someone else to pay for something. But I think, one, it's about investing in yourself, and two, and I don't want to sound like a dick saying this, but I did in 2010, I did the Harvard agri program thing. They did it up in China. I'm pretty sure they don't do it there now, but they did it at the time. And what I learned is what I didn't know. And I was so out of my depth, and there was something really powerful in that. Because when you all of a sudden learn that shit all, you actually become more in tune with learning. I don't know, maybe that sounds weird. Like, you doing that director's course is brilliant, because you'd probably do it again one day.
Yeah. I think it puts structure around your thoughts. I think you think a lot of stuff, but actually just putting structure around how you approach that's really important. And structure gives you freedom. That's probably always been my motto, just around a few core things around how you engage with people, or you set yourself up for success on a daily basis, weekly basis, quarterly, whatever it might be. but you've got to know that you need the flex around that, and that probably comes from that wisdom that you've grown in different areas with some of that formal learning. I think that's always really good.
Every
To
time you
stretch
take a bit of
yourself.
a punch, you get better at taking a punch, don't you?
Yeah, and it was actually John Wilson that said, "Don't necessarily just stay in ag, do something different." That's why I did the Ice House course. Like, in yourself going up to China, JJ, like that. That's awesome. Getting yourself out of the comfort zone in a completely different environment. There's something about putting yourself out there and learning in a different environment that you're not comfortable in is really important. So I
You
think
learn how
that's
insignificant you are. I remember a guy from Cargill turning to me, introduced himself. I introduced myself and he said, our turnover is higher than your country's GDP, and turned his back on me and didn't talk to me for the rest of the week. Because people were up there doing business. They were like, I had no idea what I'd walked into.
yeah.
I was there in this fluffy little world to learn, and they were up there doing business. There was a person who owned a port who was there to meet the Land O'Lakes, exec. There was the CEO of Monsanto there, and it was like this insane environment where I had no idea what was happening the whole time, really. But I learned so much from that.
That would have been huge, eh? And just through osmosis, you pick up on stuff and
And it's that
language
structure,
and that.
how they work through a problem, how they work through the case studies, how they unpicked things. I think that's the thing. It's just that structure.
That's pretty much it. And it gives you confidence and consistency. And yeah. Yeah, it's quite ironic that I'm talking about being structured, because if you saw my daily life outside of work, it's probably the most unstructured thing you've ever seen. But I try and espouse to being structured, and even just putting training in my diary. I'm rubbish at it at the moment, but just committing to pockets that you need to commit for yourself. If you're not committing to yourself and structured around how you approach things, then it's hard to be structured and influence and lead other people. So something I'm
Totally.
working on at the moment, JJ. I wouldn't say I've nailed that.
Yeah, but also you don't want to be rigid, right? Because then you become like, I'm
No.
sorry, Barry, I can't take that call because I have to be at the gym. You have to have flexibility within your framework.
Yeah, I think behavioural things like I'm a starter. I'm a bloody good starter, but I do know that I fall off the disc profiling, driver influencer. What is it? Social compliance.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I know I fall off, and surrounding myself with people that I know will continue and hold me to account is really important. So that's always good. I
Yeah,
know
I like
that.
to think of it as the people that clean up my mess behind me, but that's cool. I like your way of putting it instead. That's big too. Like you, through this whole journey, you've had children, you've moved family from, like, you've kind of made it sound easy, but it's not. Like, I want to just get into the nitty gritty of it. Is you've done this with a family, grown a family, and then moved a family and done all this with a family. And I think that's big.
Incredibly fortunate to have three beautiful kids and really supportive wife, and leading in at a reasonably young age, with Ngāi Tahu at 36,
Yeah.
and with a young family, and then now 40. There's these competing challenges, right? And you want to be the best father first and foremost, and then everything sort of falls in behind that, really. And there's times where you definitely you're challenged to be able to be that. But yeah, again, I think age and stage, the age of the kids and where they're at and what I need to achieve at work, it's probably just making sure that we're balancing that a little bit, and making sure you're taking the time, taking the rest of this week off to have school holidays with them, which would be exciting. So it's just making sure you're a little bit more structured now, and getting stuff in the diary, making it happen, and then committing to, when you can't be there, to what you really need to nail. So all of these things are great hypothetically and conceptually, JJ, but it's actually putting them into practice and executing that's the tough thing. It's not impossible, right? And Shivers, I know lots of people around me that are working just as hard, a lot harder, more difficult situations, and they're making it happen. So I think one thing about farming that really taught me was the ability to understand your physical limitations around work. And the 19-2 roster, getting up every morning at 4 o'clock for 19 days to milk the cows, always on first herd, just the structure of that farm really taught me a shitload around what your limitations are, and your cognitive thinking and your ability to think and process under pressure. And that's just commonplace in a farming environment. And then having our own business, having limited days off, you have a day off means you're paying someone else. It's just the reality of starting a business and trying to, drive a good bottom line and get ahead. And that's the beautiful thing about the sector. But you do learn a lot through that process and working bloody hard. And there was springs where you'd sort of get a day off in sort of 4 or 5 months, or it was a big shift, but you were putting it in the vet, you were growing your people, you were having a great time on farm. But that's the reality of farming. There were challenges through that, but I think it's about knowing your limitations and how you respond to that, how you can grow from that, how you can get better. But it's actually just I think people are probably not as aware of what their limitations are around work ethic and drive. So I think that's something, and it's all very easy saying that from the role that I'm in, but I've done a couple of seasons to understand that you can really dig deep. And at the moment, I think the whole country's digging deep. Right, we're in a position, but don't waste a crisis. There's a great opportunity to reset operating models, cost structures, balance sheets. Probably not so much balance sheets, to be fair. There's a lot of capital slushing around, but it's a great opportunity to get the operational side sorted. So I think you mentioned it, Thrive in 25. It is going to be a challenging year, I still think, next year, but to that point, around getting your operating models and that right and sorted, 26 I'm bloody excited for. The big thing for me is just making sure we're setting ourselves up for success. That's the biggest thing. So
it's about getting that foundation right. You got your structure in place, you got your frameworks in place, everyone knows what's expected. Shit's going to happen. Like, shit always happens. Like, I don't know why people think that we can predict it. We've never been able to predict it. We just worked out recently that we can't predict it, which has scared us. Things will happen. The world is imperfect. We are imperfect humans, but really simple guardrails that every human being and every business can put in place that you have discussed today that protect you when the shit hits the fan.
And it's getting back to core principles of the organization that you're in, right? There's core things that you need to absolutely own and execute on a daily basis physically, that you can measure physically, that you just need to keep front of mind and keep those lead indicators going, because the lag ones just happen if the lead ones keep getting ticked off. So I think it's just having the confidence in that, and having the confidence that getting out of bed every day, hitting those lead indicators are really critical to get ahead. And it is sometimes just the grind, and it will be the grind for a lot of people at the moment, but having the confidence that you'll get out of that, and those lags will start coming through when macro stuff starts happening.
Yeah, and the thing is, you want to set yourself up so when good macro is happening, you can take advantage of it. What happens is we're limping now, and people aren't setting anything up. It's almost like they're just waiting for something better to happen. And the reality of it is, no one's coming to save you. You actually need to set your business up so that, and it might be about changing it. And I'm not making light of this. You have to make shit decisions that hurt, that are crappy, that you don't like. And for some, that might be shutting down. For some, that might be building up. For some, it might be, I don't know, just stabilizing what you've got and consolidating. The reality of it is, it's in your control. That part's in your control.
Shit, it's not easy at times. I mean, we've just had a restructure, and that's not easy. You affect people's lives, but you've got to see the medium term and the other side of it around stabilizing business and getting it right for future success. So that's always challenging as a leader, but you've always got to keep the future in mind around how we wear the jersey with pride while we've got it on. Yeah.
And I think also be careful how we judge people. Like, I think for you're someone that will go through hell and back and no one will ever know. We are very quick to judge someone that actually takes challenge as growth. You're not licking your wounds and crying in the corner, blaming the world for everything not being great in that moment. It doesn't mean that you don't actually understand what it feels like to take a punch in the face.
That's where the mentor, or just having, it doesn't have to be a formal mentor or a business coach, doesn't have to be that formal, but having a confidant that you can just reach out to, be it outside of your industry or someone that you can just have a coffee or a beer with, or a chat around some of the common challenges that you're facing, or just a challenge that you're in at the moment, is really critical. Sometimes a problem shared is a problem halved. You can very easily, especially on farm, get really isolated. So it's really important to have those trusted people around you, or if you don't, then go searching for one. There's always people open and willing to have the kōrero.
No, and I think too, I'm going to sound like a real old person here, but I think shit takes work. Like, you just got to grit it. Sometimes you're hitting walls, you need to get help. But I mean, sometimes it's just that you don't want to get up and you don't want to do that shit and you are tired, and it's just working through it. It's knowing the difference. Balance is not a straight line.
Until you've seen it or witnessed it firsthand, or experienced it firsthand, it's pretty confronting. Just making sure that you can keep positive, take the good out of everything. I think that's there's a lot of good things that are still happening, and making sure you're focusing on those. It's going quite deep, this, JJ, but
it's meant to. It's meant to. We've only got a couple more questions because I know you've got to go. What advice have you got for aspiring leaders?
You probably invest in yourself a bit. You're probably you're immensely passionate about something, and harness that, focus on that, and make sure that you're balanced on how you approach that with both sides of the views. There's always two sides to every story, but if you're passionate about something, making sure you're grounded as to your approach. Mentors, business coaches. I think that's really critical. Getting people around you that will hold you to account and keep you grounded and keep you growing and pushing you is really important. I mean, there's no greater thing than setting a big, hairy, audacious goal with someone and then them driving you to get there. That's pretty exciting and aspirational and rewarding, really rewarding. And it doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be a management role. It doesn't have to have chief or a management or in your title. Like, leadership can take so many forms these days, and in your local community, school, whatever it might be, that stuff's really important to put yourself out there. One thing on reflection that was really good for my personal development was actually I invested in an equity syndicate way back pre-GFC, in a dairy farm. So I was actually vested in the industry, governance of that entity, and just driving performance there. That was really exciting, and I learned so much through that process. That was fantastic. And then the other one was ag tech and investing in Trev and getting exposed to capital raises, getting exposed to an industry that I'm passionate about. That was actually, in a roundabout way, really, really rewarding, and grew me a lot more than I would have if I'd been a passive sort of sit on the sidelines. So sometimes I think if you're really passionate about something, or investing in it in a way that's not doesn't put you at risk personally, but gives you a little bit of an entree to understand it, that shivers. That's been awesome to grow in those two roles as I've sort of evolved. So as a aspiring leader, just thinking about how you can maybe get invested, both physically, financially, but also physically, invested in, as I say, local community stuff or whatever it might be, that can actually really help you on your journey, and exposure to things that are going well, and exposure to things that aren't so.
And know when to move on, know when to make space for others.
100%. I'm the first. If I don't think I'm adding value, and I probably thought that a little bit at Fonterra, just the role I was in, I was like, shivers, I'm sucking on the hind tit here a little bit, and also really wanted to do that farming gig. So I was kind of like, shivers, okay, well, change will be changed, right? So make way for the next person, and I'll take it to another level, which is really important.
And I want everyone to check out Trev, because it's really cool and it's run by amazing people who I love. And it is an actually awesome bit of software that helps farm management, and it's around, again, that structure, right? If you're not sure of what we mean by structure, there's your tool. Last question. What's your greatest wish for New Zealand? And it can be for agriculture or all of New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
And it can be multiple wishes.
Shivers, I've probably got a few, to be fair.
Put them out. That's good. You roll with them.
But this sounds horrendous, but maybe that's just a reaction from the bit more of our industry-wide issue. But just capital allocation. How do we as a country give our pseudo governors or our government of the day confidence to invest over a 20-year time horizon with infrastructure? Like, going from a 3 to 3 year cycle, different views on how we invest, just doesn't. Our capital spend is just rubbish relative to that. So how we can get our big boy pants on and just think a little bit more longer term for a country that has got longer term thinking. When you reflect on Matauranga and all that sort of thing, and our underlying vision around kaitiakitanga and that, like, we should be able to do that. And we've only got a small bucket of capital, so that's probably one. JJ,
Awesome.
the other one's probably how do we give that more certainty across government terms? So 3-year terms, you barely get a bow wave up, let alone hitting on the plane, and you're then into another election cycles, maybe 4-year terms like the Nordic countries, and
Yep.
extending that a little bit. I know 1 year's only a year, but you do need some certainty at that level to make sound decisions. Yeah, I was listening to Cameron Baggery with you, was it a fortnight ago? And you just can't agree more that, our next 30 years success will be defined by the generation today and how we're growing and nurturing them. So, our schooling environment, our teachers, how are we supporting them to be the best they can be, and
Yep.
how are we investing in them? That is our future. That's our next gen. And healthcare, yeah, shivers. We've
The
only
list
got a
goes on,
small
right?
pool of capital here, and it's just all the same stuff that you hear probably from a lot of people. But how do we spend that more wisely and look after the strengths of Aotearoa, which are our environment, our ability to convert grass, which will evolve, and I'm I'll front that does need to evolve, and in our beautiful tourism space and our health and welfare environment for wealthy people to come and enjoy that. We've just got such a value prop. We just need to probably heal together and paddle in the same direction, which I know is impossible with unity and political
Nothing's
feelings, but
impossible. Unity is a
no,
state of mind, and I think we just got to stop thinking that we have to agree on everything and hug each other about everything. We don't. We can dislike people and still work together.
true.
Jesus,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
were in
no,
banking. I mean, how many people did I dislike? Many people I worked with.
the
No, I loved many of them, but there's a couple I didn't like. So still got to work with them.
credit the credit department,
The
right? You
credit
spend all
department, the
your
business,
time on it.
yeah.
That was the beautiful thing about early banking, was that, yeah, the balance sheet side, the cash flow side, but there was the people factor, and that people factor underwrote a lot of great deals. And yep, there was probably a few deals that it didn't, but shivers the reward from backing someone that was capable to handle debt and they wanted to grow themselves, and supporting them into that shit. There's no better feeling than enabling another person to succeed. It's awesome.
Will Burrett, you are one of my favorite people in the world, and I think I am grateful to get to learn from you, and I'm grateful to have you as a role model in my life. And so, thank you for sharing, because I know you hate talking about yourself. You may be exhausted, you might need a nap. I've forced you into it, and I'm very grateful. And just, I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, thanks, JJ. Thanks for the opportunity. It's not until you talk about stuff that you reflect. So thanks for challenging me there. It's been a great journey. Still got a lot to learn and a lot to give. So thank you for your friendship. And yeah, if there's anyone out there that wants a kōrero at all around the sector, then always more than happy to share some time.
Yeah, do it. Ring him.